Hey guys, it's Tom, and thanks for coming to check out this live stream. Today we're going to be talking about something that is not, it's not really like a technical, here's how to edit dialogue or here's how to mix for film. Um, it's something that I've had a lot of questions about, and it's also something that people don't really like to talk about because it's kind of it's a touchy subject, and it can be hard to talk about, and that's money. Talking about making an income, making a living, even if you're just starting out in audio post production. Most people, I would say, don't do it as a hobby. They are doing it as side money or maybe their full time job. For me, it's been a full time job since 2008. Well, so I did production sound for the first 2 years I was in Los Angeles. So it was films in general, film and TV was a full time job for me starting in 2008. But I switched over to post production full time in like 2010. So I've been making a living just working in Pro Tools, doing audio post production for about 14 years. And there's been a lot of ups and downs. Like I've had some really great years, and I've also had some really tough years where I've had to, sell some gear or, take jobs that I didn't really want to. Um, oh, Master Nelson says the ADR Edivid for family heirloom and members only isn't on the audio post 201 playlist. I could fix that later. I am currently working on a union project, so I'll try to keep this stream concise with not a lot of babbling because I've got stuff to do, and you guys probably have stuff to do. But um, as far as financials are concerned, it could be really difficult to make a full-time living doing audio post production, especially if you're not working at a facility or if you're maybe not in like one of the big markets like Los Angeles, New York City, Sydney, probably, every film hub is going to have its like central core city. I'm trying to remember. I think in Nigeria there's a couple. I think Lagos is one, and there's obviously like regional film markets. So if you're not in those cities, it's going to be very difficult to make a full-time living because it's really based on your connection with your clients. So kind of the first tip I'll give people when they're like, well, how do I make a living doing audio post-production? The first thing you need to do is move to a city that has a thriving post-production community and a lot of films being made, or commercials or whatever. Like there needs to be stuff happening that you can lend your skills to there. If you're going to try and do things remote, it's an uphill battle because that face-to-face connection, the personal connection, is really what drives clients to your doorstep. And reaching out through email or phone calls or Instagram or whatever is tough because you don't have that physical, like face-to-face interaction with people. So first thing is if you're starting out, move to a place where a lot of post-production is happening or a lot of films are being made. You can ply your skills there and get some paid work. And better yet, there's going to be post houses and post production studios that you can freelance at, or four wall, which is where you rent the space to like do a mix, or come on as staff. They'll probably start you out as kind of an entry level. You might be getting coffee for people and greeting guests, but that's your foot in the door. So you can choose that path where you're looking at facilities and like, I'm just going to be a cog in the wheel, or you can go the freelance path, which is going to be more of what we're talking about because it's less of like a full-time day job. It's like really finding work is half your job. So I'd love to take any questions you guys have, especially members. Like, we're going to take all kinds of questions, but I like to give members preference because they're supporting the channel. So you guys get first dibs. But anybody else who wants to throw out a question about financial stuff, just throw it out. We'll take the turn off the freeway for those discussions. But I'll just keep kind of talking about the financial side. I'm actually going to show you something that is maybe a little bit risky, but I'm going to show you my ledger from 2021. Let's see here. There we go. So this is from 3 years ago. This was after the COVID pandemic started, and it was a pretty standard year for me as far as like income, but I had some interesting projects come through that I wouldn't have normally gotten because I was set up for remote mixing. So before I had QuickBooks, I would write down or type, I guess, every penny spent and penny earned in a Google sheet that I could, get and just like have everything right there, all the stuff I've made. And so I've got an in and an out category here. And the red ones, I'm trying to remember the color coding I did. There's software expenses. Yeah, I did software expenses, and then I color coded it so that when I did my Schedule C tax return, that I could parcel stuff out. So like for a lot of the Schedule C expenses, you can sum them, you can add them together, and then throw it into like a category like software or small tools or office expenses. So and I've got every job I did here on the left side and the in, and then I had the dates, and then I stopped doing the dates because it was just too much. So what I did then is I totaled everything up, and I have client totals too, so I could see like who did I do the most work for. Hey Marvel Studios, good morning to you. And then I have my expenses, which is in accounting, you will do either a minus or parentheses for a negative, and then that got me the net income. So, and then I did like a monthly average, and I also did my average hourly rate, which wasn't that awesome. It averaged out to be only like 57.29. What I did is I took the total for the year, and then I divided it by 2087, which is the amount of hours in a year. I really didn't work that many hours. I think when I was keeping track, it averaged out to be about 25 hours a week. So this should actually be, what would be, that'd be half. Let's say I really worked about 1,200 hours for the year. So that's close to $100 an hour, which is not shabby. If you're mixing full time, your rate's going to be higher. But this is all like pretty personal, and I hesitated to share it, but I thought like this is good because it'll show you kind of like what you can expect as far as like income and expenses. And you can see I wasn't shy about spending money, but I only bought stuff that would make me more money or that I could use to like do better at a job. So that's the other thing to consider when you're like, it's one thing to take the jobs and make the money, but I see a lot of people throwing their money away on stuff that on the bottom line, meaning that, line at the bottom of your ledger or your profit and loss sheet, it has no bearing on the profit that you make for the year. Like people will spend $500 on a plugin, and does it really make you more money? Probably not. It's really just a new shiny thing for you to chase after. So that's something to really be mindful of. And then the other thing is charging an appropriate rate for things, which really comes with experience. when you're just starting out, I tell people take every job you can. Everything. Um, Job meaning paid work. Even if it's what you consider to be an insulting rate, assuming you can do the work well and make the client happy. When you're starting out, people are really paying to train you. That's what's happening. When you don't have a lot of experience and you take jobs, it's paid school. Save your money on Full Sail Academy or NYFA or whatever, you know, audio school that will take 200 grand of your money and give you a degree that will not get you any work in the industry. Save that money for living expenses for like a couple years and just take every job you can, you know, 25 bucks an hour, whatever, $100 flat rate for, a couple hours of work. Just take it. Take it, bank the experience, because in a couple years you'll be able to say no to those and charge an industry standard rate for things, because your skills will be at the level that demands the premium expense for the client. So Neuromoto says, good day, and I say good day back to you. Again, if you guys have questions, just throw them out there. We're talking about money, which is kind of boring, and, a lot of people don't like it, but audio post-production is really a combination of art and technology. So if you're trying to run a business, the money is part of it. And I'm a big fan of doing things myself. A lot of people will pay an accountant, which is fine. They'll give you monthly reports on your profit and loss or whatever you ask them to, basically. And people will then call their accountant and say, hey, I want to buy a Mac Studio. Can I do that? Do I have money for that? If you keep track of it yourself, you'll know, because you'll be able to look at your, gross profit and your net income, and then you have to take taxes out. Like, there's that too. So, yeah, and every market's different. This is what I've experienced, and this is not working in Los Angeles. I live way outside of any market. I think one of these jobs was a local job, but the rest were like, they're from remote clients, and that's why I'm going to keep going back to this. Move to a place where this stuff is happening, because you can make clients, and then they're going to be in your pocket for as long as you keep them happy. They should stick by you. And that's the other thing, is having a diverse mix of clients. Like, have your 2 or 3 that are big, they pay a lot of your bills. Never limit yourself to just one. But then also be open to taking the smaller one-off things here and there, because those do add up. If you can make $300, in an hour or two working on a commercial, take it, because they will come back to you. And those, when you're slow with your big clients, those clients might end up, carrying you through the slow times. So this is a good question. Michael Robertson says, are you set up as an LLC? I am not. I talked to an accountant about that. And they told me that because of the work that I do, it's not like there's a ton of liability. It's always good to have insurance, but, like business insurance, and to be registered. But the LLC doesn't make a ton of sense. And the S Corp also, you can set up as an S Corp, which is another way to go. Doesn't make a ton of sense until you're like, closer to maybe 200 grand a year, just because of the expenses involved with that, and some of the, like, it makes the tax side of things more complicated, where most people will go to an accountant for that. And I like doing everything myself, so I'm just set up as a sole proprietorship. And it hasn't lost me any jobs that I know of. But it's just easier. You can do a Schedule C and do all your taxes yourself, which I really like. It takes me maybe half a day to do my taxes, and that's it. An LLC is a limited liability corporation. It is meant so that if a client were to come after you legally, like sue you, that they wouldn't be able to come after your personal stuff, like your house and your checking accounts. It's limited to this third party, which is your corporation. And a lot of studios are set up as LLCs. So you, if you want to do it, go for it. I talked to an accountant and it didn't really make sense for me, but if I ever got to where I was making Boku bucks, I would probably do it. But I'm kind of comfortable where I'm at. And the other thing, like I used to be super into the money side of things and trying to like, make more money and like stress out about, am I making enough? How do I make more? How do I get bigger clients, bigger jobs? And I think having kids kind of pumped the brakes on that. And now it's like, do I have enough? If I have enough, just chill. Don't worry about it. The money's going to come, if you have faith in God or the world or whatever your outside of your own self is, things work out. Generally things happen to keep you going. So I've kind of slowed down on the grind aspect of, money, money, money. Let's make some, make this money and then spend the money. Like it's just like, let me just get enough to cover stuff. And then that kind of buys me time with my family or to do non-work stuff. Great question, Michael. Do you use any accounting software like QuickBooks? I do. I love QuickBooks, even though it's kind of expensive. It has made this aspect of it, the hand note taking and, emailing invoices and then getting paper checks in. It's all run through QuickBooks now. They're hooked up to my, business accounts so that if anything comes out of the account or into it, it's like I can categorize the expense. And the invoices are nice because you email the invoice and they can pay with a credit card. So I'm a huge, I use QuickBooks for every job. This ledger thing has gone by the wayside, but I still touch everything. Like I still approve, all the money coming in, money going out in QuickBooks. But it definitely makes things easier. So yeah, I do. Let's look at some more questions. Are there audio post positions outside of post houses, say at a TV station or something like that? I don't know. I've thought about that. When I moved away from LA, I was thinking maybe I could get on at like the local TV station, but usually from what I understand, those roles are limited to like A1 roles, meaning you're live mixing the broadcast. All the anchors have mics on and there's nat sound you have to mix and there's music bumpers and graphic sounds. So I'm assuming the audio mixers that do those jobs also, if they're like, hey, we need to clean this audio up, maybe they do it. But the local TV stations generally, like the if they have an editor, then they're doing the audio posts themselves, because stuff is so fast. Like the anchors go out and shoot it and the footage gets, chopped up and they just broadcast it. And so they do everything in whatever edit, system they're using, Avid, Premiere, Resolve. So I don't think there's a ton of opportunities for audio post outside of the film and TV stuff. There are staff positions for networks, like Netflix will have staff audio post people. Warner Brothers does. I'm sure Hulu and like the NFL does. So, but those are located in big cities. Okay, TJ Explorer, this is good. What are the usual rates for mixing an indie film there in the US? They range from $0 up to, for an indie film, probably like 200 grand or something. For low budget indie films, because indie films can have $10 million budgets or $20 million budgets, but for low budget indie films, let's say where the budget is under 5 million or maybe 3 million, somewhere around there, they're generally going to be spending say 40 to 60 grand to do audio post production. That includes Foley, dialogue edit, mix. But then you get like the passion projects, which people say, oh, I have an indie film. can you mix it? And like they have $5,000 or they have $10,000. So I try not to take films that are less than 10 grand because it's going to take me 4 to 8 weeks to do the work. And once you get to 8 weeks and it's 10 grand, that is what, like 1150 or 12 something. I'm not good at math. A week, which is $200 to $300 a day, which is not, I can't do it. It just doesn't make sense. It features a huge amount of work. It takes you off of other work. So I'll generally say, like, if you don't have 10 grand to do audio post, like find an intern or do it yourself in Premiere. Maybe I'll help you mix it, like if you just give me stems, but I just can't dedicate 2 months of time and only make 10 grand because like that doesn't cover expenses. It doesn't cover taxes and insurance and all the software subscriptions that we got to have. So yeah, I would say 10K is the minimum, and then 30 to 40 is more comfortable. You can actually hire help then. How is the competition as a dialogue editor? This is from Paul Bohack. Is there a demand for them? Right now, the industry is pretty slow, so there's not a lot of demand, and there's a lot of people out of work. So it's pretty cutthroat. And when there's a glut of material, like pandemic, post-pandemic, when all the studios were pumping out just everything, like episodics, feature films. It was gangbusters for a while. Then yeah, there's a huge demand. Like you just can't put bodies in seats for it. But what happened is there's a huge glut of content. Everybody's working. They're shorthanded. People are like, oh, shorthanded for dialogue editors? Okay, I'm going to be a dialogue editor. And more people join, more people join, more people join. Then the waterworks just got shut off and there's no content or very little content. And so now you have all these people that are like, where's all the work? So they're hitting up, supervisors for work, and everybody's scrambling to try and get some hours to keep their benefits. People are losing their benefits. This is all union stuff, and so it's a very trying time for just filmmaking in general, and TV has really taken a hit. So there's a lot of competition right now. You have to be very good to get work right now. And even if you're very good, there's people that are way better dialogue editors than me, and they're not working. There's just not enough to go around. So, yeah, that's a good question. Master Nelson says, do you know what an assistant sound editor and a mix tech does? Yes. So an assistant sound editor will deal with ingesting material from production, like when a show turns over, meaning they're done-ish with their edit and they want to start audio post-production. They send all kinds of stuff. They send EDLs, they send the video files, they send guide tracks, they send AAFs, they send line script, production sound rolls, continuity lists, like all the turnover stuff, like here you go, get started. The assistant sound editor will take all that stuff, make sense of it, do an assembly, which is where they assemble the location sound to the cut, and then send stuff out to everybody. So they send the dialogue editor the assembly, they send the supervising sound editor all the stuff, sound effects editors. So they're kind of like the point person for getting started. And then they will also do things like, for different studios, they'll do more, like they'll deal with taking time cards and fielding questions like, who do I talk to about this? A mix tech is somebody who will be like at the dub stage, helping the mix get set up and making sure the mix runs smoothly. So they're both, the mix tech is probably a little harder to get into, requires more in-depth knowledge and like troubleshooting stuff. To be fair though, an assistant sound editor is going to have to troubleshoot EDLs that don't, line up with things, and production sound that's mislabeled, and they both have a lot of technical things they have to deal with, but they're also good spots to start a career. If you want to go like the facility union track, they're good places to start. They can be high stress, so just keep that in mind. So that's a good question. Any members? Let's see who we've got members in the chat. We've got Michael, Micah, Neural Moto, Marvel Studios. It'd be great to get some more member questions just so I can focus on that stuff. I'm trying to think of other things I can talk about. This might be a little bit of a shorter stream just because it's kind of dry. It's a little boring. But I thought it would be good to talk about because, it's something that most people don't talk about, and it can be kind of touchy. And it's the same thing like if you work at a office type thing, nobody will talk about what they're making for pay. Like, and the best thing you can do as a worker, if you want to get a raise, is talk about it. And what happens is the businesses actually tell people, don't talk about what you're making, because they don't want workers discussing their pay and finding out, well, Bob is making $30 an hour and I'm only making $20 an hour. What's up with that? I want a raise. Then you can justify, asking for a raise. And I think if we do that as freelancers, then we'll probably help each other get more as far as a rate, because you'll see like, well, what are other people charging for this stuff? If you don't know, you might be leaving a lot of money on the table, and then whoever's hiring you is getting a really good deal when you should really be compensated more fairly for what you're doing. So, yeah. Let's see. Other questions. Master Nelson just became a member, so I don't have a song, but I'm going to give you a Vault Tech bauble for that. So thank you so much. I've had this, I think, since Fallout 3 came out. Yeah, it actually says Fallout 3 on the back. Okay, this is a member question. We'll do this one first. How do you negotiate when producers say they won't pay over scale? If you're talking about like union stuff, I just really, a lot of that discussion is not with the producers, because I am not coming in as a supervising sound editor. I'm just a dialogue editor or ADR editor for most things. So I don't normally ask for more than scale on union stuff. I'm just happy to be working. I could probably get more. I've gotten more on, I think, 1 or 2 projects because it was offered, but because I'm remote and I'm not there, like, I'm just so happy to be working that, like, scale is good. Scale is enough for me. It's really, to me, where I live in my expenses, it's an excellent rate. So I'm not going to ask for more than that. On non-union stuff, then negotiating it's to me fun because I like to haggle, but it can also be nerve-wracking and make you pull your hair out because it's a fight. It's like an arm wrestle with the client for who, pulls the gun out first and says, here's a dollar amount that I'm comfortable with, because then that becomes the focal point for negotiations. So whoever shoots first generally loses, because it's you waiting for the client to say, here's my budget, and it's the client waiting for you to say, here's my rate, because everybody wants that number to be favorable to them. So in those situations, the experience of doing enough work to know what the going rate is will really help you quote for things. And then also you could do research on, if it's a film, there's probably going to be some kind of press about it. Even if it's a Kickstarter, like, you can look up what they made through that. Or if it's on Deadline or Variety, then it might say like, hey, they have a budget of 2.5 million, or, it was only made for 10 grand. Then you'll know, like, probably not going to get a super killer rate on this one. But do some research. Also, feel free to research the people, like, look them up. Are they traveling the world and getting cappuccinos in Italy? Are they like just scrapping? Does it seem like their career has a high potential where they will shoot up, to the stratosphere and take you with them. You have to take all that stuff because really you're investing your time. If you think somebody is, they're starting out and they don't have a lot of money, but look who it is. All right, we have a guest on my. She's out of here. That was my wife. That was so funny. She's super camera shy. Yeah, so think of the potential of the client, and the thing that the clients will do is they'll say like, this is going to festivals and it's going to get a lot of exposure, and on the next one I'm going to hire you at a fair rate. Like those are all the standard BS responses to lowballing you. They want you to invest your time in their film without costing them an arm and a leg. So you do have to kind of weigh that and think, is it worth the investment? If it's a low rate, like you're then kind of giving them a discount and you're investing your own time in it. But negotiating higher, what I like to do with a cold call, meaning somebody who's saying, I want you to work on this film, and I don't know them, I don't know what their budget is I'll give them like 2 or 3 quotes, a good, a better, and a best. And the good quote might have like, just basic, I'll do a dialogue edit, I'll add some sound effects, and I'll do a mix. And that's it. And it's going to be fast, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be way better than what you can do, and it's going to sound good by the end. And then I'll have a better quote that's like, okay, I'm going to do all that, plus I'm going to hire out the Foley. We're going to do Foley, first of all, because low budget stuff, that's usually the first thing to get knocked off the list. No Foley. I'll hire a Foley team, and I'll maybe hire a sound effects editor. So that's going to be the middle range quote. And then I'll do like the, primo, like we're going to rent a dub stage. We're going to hire a great sound effects editor. We're going to hire a great dialogue editor, and we're going to hire a great Foley team. And it's going to cost this much, but it's going to sound fantastic. And we're not going to rush. We're going to take our time. This is like your magnum opus, so we're going to treat it like that. So I've had a few people say, yeah, let's go with the higher quote, but usually it's the middle one or the low one. And the worst is when you give them they say, I want the low quote, but I want all the stuff on the high quote. And you have to tell them like, dude, it doesn't work that way. I can't, like, I'm not going to invest my own money in this. This is your film. So that is a way to negotiate. And then the other thing is just be willing to walk. If they really want you and they don't have a lot of options, you have the leverage. So you can say, this is my rate. If you can't pay it, good luck. Here's some other people who might be a little bit cheaper. And sometimes that will be enough to sway them and get them to budge. But you also have to be willing to negotiate and play ball with them. So, okay. Pretty common to work scale, Neuromoto asks. Yes, very common to work scale. At least for me, and I've heard from others that it is. So there's so many people willing to work scale that if you try to negotiate, they can just go to somebody else. So Michael Robertson asked, might be out of scope for this stream, but how does one get gigs? That is actually in scope, and it's great. And I would say, like I said, move to a hub of film production is the first thing. Second thing is get out there, shake hands, kiss babies, get your name in people's hats, and just bust your butt trying to get as much work as you can to build up reputation, build up your skills and experience. There are online gig things, Fiverr, Upwork. I'm sure there's a couple others. Upwork, one year I made a pretty good amount of money on Upwork, probably like 20 grand or something like that. But I really put time into it and tried to build up my ratings and, be a little bit picky about the jobs that I took. I don't know much about Fiverr. Both of those, you're going to have international competition. So you're going to be dealing with people who, if you're in the US, UK, Australia, markets where labor is expensive, you're going to be going head to head with people in markets where the labor is less expensive. So there's a little bit of like, I would say a race to the bottom, because those people, some of them are great. Like they would make it in the US. They're just not located here. but people will take, they'll take the cheaper option if that's what they need to do. Marvel Studio says, I'm still in university. I want to start getting paid, but I feel like I can't at this point. Do I have to wait till I graduate? No, you don't. I started making money doing audio stuff in college, and of course you can too. And you should if it's not a school project. It's work. It's like, yeah. So I'd say definitely start getting paid for short films. Does the Master Nelson new member says, does the MPSC have a rate? So MPSC is a professional organization that is not, it's not MPEG, it's not the union or the guild. So MPSC, like, you pay them and then you get to put MPSC after your name. And they have events and stuff too. So it's kind of like the Freemasons of audio post. Not that it's bad, but it's like you pay to be a member and then you get access to all their rituals and all the stuff they do, which is cool. A lot of people do that. So they don't have a rate. MPEG has rates. You can actually look up. I can actually bring that up. Local 700 rates. It's gonna be tied to the different contracts. Let's look up a show. We'll just type in a show. I can show you this. So you can go to editorsguild.com, wages and contracts, which is right here. Let's type in, what's a show we could type in? I think, okay, so if you're not a member, you won't be able to log in, but I think you can still look up the wages. And I don't think you can access the agreements, but what's a good show? Let's do Umbrella Academy. Bam, shows up, hit go. Oh, we do not have a contract on file that matches Umbrella Academy. That might be shot in Canada. I bet that's why. Let's look up Twisters. So you can look up the contract title, and it doesn't have the rates on here. Interesting. Oh, select classification. That's right. Okay, so let's look at like re-recording mixer. Okay, so here you go. You can see here the wages, $4,000 a week for that, or $81.61 an hour, and there's built-in overtime with all this stuff. So you can look this up if you want, and kind of see what the rates are for different things. So we can do sound editor. Sure. Our weekly rate $31.47.82. Our weekly hourly rate $64.77. These are all 48.6 hours. So there's an overtime guarantee of, I think it's like 8.6 hours a week. So that's why the hourly and weekly don't really line up. But yeah, you can look all that stuff up. For indie stuff, there's a Blue Collar Post, I think Blue Collar Post Collective, I think is what they're called. And they do a yearly rate survey where people will say what they are making. So you can use that as kind of a litmus test too for where your rate's at. Okay, Staff Me Up. I don't know, Staff Me Up, I've heard mixed things about, so yeah. I don't really have any comment on that because I don't know. Neuralmoto says, have you worked with clients when there was a language barrier? I've worked on, well, so generally the clients will speak English. It might not be fluent or great English, but there's some English involved. And there's been a few clients where they spoke like okay English, but their main language was Spanish or something that I could speak with them. So that worked out fine. But I've worked with, Nigerian directors and Indian directors. So generally, if they're hiring somebody in the US that speaks English, their English is pretty good. In a lot of cases, better than my English because they've actually learned like the proper way to say things instead of the kind of bastardized American way to say things. But there's terms and stuff. There's terms that will be different from region to region. Like ADR is a big one. Some people will call it dubbing or VO instead of ADR. And then dialogue will sometimes not be called dialogue, or it'll be called dialogues, or it'll be called production or sync sound. So there's all kinds of different terms for that. Foley and sound effects tend to be pretty across the board, like the terms are the same. But the language barrier isn't as big of an issue as the cultural differences in like cinema experience or mixing taste, I guess. Like a couple of the Indian films I worked on, it seemed like they wanted the films to be pretty loud overall. Like to me it was uncomfortably loud, but it's just because I wasn't used to mixing with like more compression or more in your face aggressive. I actually really liked it because it was kind of different. Um, and that I found in other non-US or UK markets that probably because the playback systems are a little less controlled, that like more aggressive compression and like closer to like a TV mix or a radio mix is kind of what people expect to hear when they go to watch a film. But there's also films I've mixed where it was like an Indian film and they wanted it to be dynamic and they wanted it to sound like an American mix. And that was cool too. Like there's always cultural cross-pollination and things you can learn from people. And the language barrier is less of an issue than like that. Cuz like I'm not in India, I'm not in Nigeria. I don't know. I don't go to those movies and know what they sound like. And learning that is kind of cool because it is like speaking a different language then. And you then when the next film you get that might be, it might be a Telugu film or it might be from like, a region that you're okay, this is close to where I've worked before, then you can kind of gauge like the regional difference and how to tailor your mix for that. It's because loudness level is different for OTTs here in India. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Master Nelson says, any audio post books you've read that you can recommend? Just the dialogue editing for motion pictures, which you've already read. That one's great. I don't read a ton of books. I've actually thought about maybe trying to write one myself, but it's a huge undertaking, and I don't even know, like, the market seems like it would be pretty small for that. So I think I'll just keep doing the YouTubes for now. Other questions are welcome. I'm trying to really hit the member questions because they are supporting the channel and I try to support them. I'm trying to think of other. It's been about 45 minutes. So let's say like 5 more minutes and then I'm going to sign off so I can get to work because I am working today. And I'm really thankful for that. There was like a slow stretch and now it's back to work. Other money stuff we talked about. I didn't really talk too much about taxes, but make sure you pay taxes. Otherwise, the government will come after you. We talked about expenses and justifying expenses. We talked about what to charge and how to quote for stuff. The good, better, best quotes are, I think, the way to go. For new clients, anyways. Good question. So does rate depend on overall budget of the film? It usually does, but there's there's exceptions to that. What was that one where they're running around in the woods and it was all shot in like camcorders? Help me out on this, guys. I'm blanking on the name. It was like the first viral film that was marketed. It was a found footage film. I'm blanking on the name, but you know, that was, and Paranormal Activity is another example. Like those films were, their shooting budget was minuscule, but then their audio post production budget was probably pretty good. Especially because they, you know, once you're going theatrical, like you just have to spend the money to get things mixed. Blair Witch Project, thank you. That's right. I don't know why I was thinking I couldn't get it. Yes, that's a good example. Like they spent very little on production, and then their audio post production budget was, from what I've heard, pretty standard. Okay, Giovanni Ellis. I'll get to your question. Let me hit these member questions first, and then I'll go back. Neural Moda says, when do you or can you bill for equipment? I've been able to do that a couple times. If I've had to buy something, or if like it was a production with really good money, then I would do a kit fee. But generally I don't. Like I'm even on the union stuff where you like you can do a computer fee or a kit fee. I'm remote. I'm 100% remote. I've never been into these a lot of these studios. And so to me that's kind of like the, maybe not the cost of doing business, but it's a welcome thing. Like I will just gladly give that up, that like $50 a day or whatever, because I get to walk my kids to school, and because I can, you know, go in my backyard for a break instead of being locked in at a studio and you know, being on site. So it's kind of a trade-off. Like I'm not going to bill for my laptop or my desktop or Pro Tools subscription. I'm just going to eat that and, you know, put it on my expense list and not worry about it. Okay, so let's go back up here. So good question, Neuromoto. How do you get remote clients? I've talked a little bit about like using Upwork, or I guess Staff Me Up is another one, or Fiverr. I haven't touched any of those for a couple years now, but they got me some work. It was enough to scrape by. You just have to kind of be a salesman and, you know, build your client base up. Do we have a super chat? What? Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That, you just bought me a pound and a half of ground beef. So thank you very much, Neuromoto. Super nice. That's a good question. Okay. House of Jen. It took a few images and pictures for me to explain a problem when I realized that comb filtering does not have a translation in Portuguese. Yes. Is there a technical translation for sound design terms? No, that can be really tough. If you're dealing with that, and I've been to Brazil, Portuguese to me sound like Russian Spanish. I learned enough to like kind of get by, but like, yeah, there's, if you're translating stuff, it Google Translate is not going to help you too much. Giovanni Ellis says, how do you think you'd price editing and mixing a musical? I would probably price it about the same. The music will be the main thing, and somebody's going to take care of that. So you'll probably have to go a little lighter on backgrounds and sound effects. Now, if you're like tuning vocals and stuff like that, okay. But usually they have a music mixer that takes care of all that stuff. So yeah, if there's like, here's the raw vocal tracks, make it sound like less miserables, or however you say it in French, then you'll probably want to charge a little more for that. Same thing was done with Robert Rodriguez's El Mariachi. Yeah. Yep, that happens. It gets picked up, and then they're like, you know what? Let's do a real sound mix. Here's like, you know, 50 grand or 60 grand, whatever. So, yeah. Uh, do you guys want to talk more? Like I could probably go till 9, but then I've got to clock in and it gets busy on this show I'm finishing up. So, if there's more questions, great. If I don't see any more questions, then I'll probably sign off. Man, that super chat like made my day. That this whole YouTube thing is very interesting. Yeah, we got a new member and we got a super chat. So, this is good. This is what keeps me doing these streams. Like some days I'll be like, it's Tuesday, I need to do a stream because people have, subscribed to my channel and asked me to do, keep going. And this is the stuff that keeps me going. So I thank you very much. Let's see. Yeah, if nobody else has any questions, I think I'm going to say goodbye. So thank you guys for dropping by. We talked about some financial stuff, boring, money, touchy subject that, people don't really like to talk about. And yeah, I can maybe, how about this? I've got a quote in Google Sheets. And so for members, I'll just send you a link to that and you guys can check it out. I'll do that right after the stream. So if you're a member, go to the community tab right after this and I'll have a link posted for you to check out. Feel free to, download it, make it your own. Don't don't fill it in. I mean, if you want to fill it in and prank me, that's fine. But I don't use it anymore, so I send all my quotes from QuickBooks. But this is good. Yeah, Paul says, I've talked about the ups and downs I've had. Is it feast or famine? It can be. It can totally be feast or famine. After you're in for a certain amount of time, you'll generally be pretty good and you'll have money saved up so you can ride out the slowdowns. But you might also have to be willing to take a job as a auto mechanic or a lumberjack or, whatever. I worked in an office for a little bit because I just wanted to try something different. And it was good. It was a good experience. So you got to be flexible. So keep working as much as you can. Get the experience if you're just starting out. As always, if you have ideas for future streams or you have questions, you can just drop a comment on this stream or drop a comment on the channel. I think you can do that. And I will see you guys next week. So that'll be October, won't it? We're like heading into fall here. So thank you guys for dropping by, and I will see you next time. Till then, take it easy.